Welcome back to CVM Live. It's now time for our major stories in detail. 3 men were killed during an alleged shootout with police in St. James in the early hours of Good Friday. Reports are that around 5:45, a police unit went to a heavily wooded section of the Sunderland community in search of wanted men and came under gunfire. The police returned the fire, and after the shootout had ended, 3 men were found suffering from gunshot wounds. They were taken to hospital where they were pronounced dead. The police informed that 2 illegal firearms were recovered. And still in Western Jamaica, the police area investigating the murder of 2 persons in separate incidents. Here is our Western correspondent, Kingsley Thompson.
Even though the ever-increasing murder rate for the parish of Westmoreland is no secret, head of that police division, Superintendent Ledford Salmon, says the killing of these 2 women, one of whom was 8 months pregnant, is a cause for concern.
It's a sad day when we start to turn on our females. Yes. And, we'd have to just step up the investigation on this because this is not a good sign at all.
And while the police are yet to determine the motive for these 2 horrible killings, the victims are identified as Karika Smith, 30 years old, merchandiser. Her body was discovered around 8 Thursday morning along the banks of the Carburetor River in Frome. Later that day, about 4:20 p.m. in Fullerswood, Laverne Poyser, a 33 years old unemployed woman, was shot and killed in her yard. She was 8 months pregnant. And while there's been marginal reduction in the number of murders when compared to the same period last year, Superintendent Salmon is envious of St. James.
We are concerned with the number of murders in Westmoreland. Our neighbor, St. James, they have been doing very well. And we would really like Westmoreland to come down to a level where persons can feel safe in their communities.
The main source of violence for that division, he says,
it's because of indisciplined youngsters in the state. Youngsters being exposed to firearms.
Reporting tonight from the parish of Westmoreland, Kingsley Thompson for CVM Live.
With approximately 10 murders within the past week in the St. Andrew South Police Division, Member of Parliament for Southwest St. Andrew, Dr. Angela Brown-Burke, is giving thought to the state of emergency and zones of special operation elsewhere in the island. CVM Live's Joel Crosskill has this report.
The community has been having some upheavals, some skirmishes, individuals being shot, persons being run out, and it has been tense for the last couple of weeks. The council and I were here about a week and a half ago, just touching base with the families, touching base with individuals in the community as well, so that they know that they are not alone.
Intelligence-driven community policing and community cooperation were 2 of the themes that emerged from discussions with MP for Southwest St. Andrew, Dr. Angela Brown-Burke, who was reacting to the murder of an individual in her community early Thursday morning.
If I were to count the last probably 7 or so days, we would have had, at least 10 persons killed in the various communities in Southwest St. Andrew. 1 is too many, and so 10 is really going to be way too many. And so I am always pained when I hear of Zozo and state of emergency elsewhere, because I know the kind of trauma of the children who need to go to school, of the seniors, of individuals who can't sleep at night because of the gunshots.
The escalated levels of criminality that are being experienced in the Whitfield Town Division and other adjoining communities is being attributed to warring factions that originated from outside of the community.
But the truth of the matter is that for this to end is really 2 sets of individuals who have the power. 1 set is the police, who can deal with the individuals who are involved in criminal activity and who can put a stop to that. But they too are not going to be able to do much unless they have the support of the other set of individuals, who are the individuals who actually live in the community, who know what is going on.
Despite the ongoing presence of the police, criminal elements have not been deterred from continuing their dastardly deeds.
Although the police is in the area, persons are so brazen that we still have the gunshots, we still have the firing, we still have the violence taking place.
Joel Crosskill, CVM Live.
An early morning tragedy has left 1 dead and 5 families homeless after a fire broke out at their residence in Mary Avenue, St. Andrew. CVM Live's Khadija Thomas has this report.
No sign of the fire that engulfed this dwelling this morning. Now 5 families are without a home and 1 man is dead. It is Good Friday, a day where Christians celebrate the crucifixion and death of Jesus Christ that has now been welcomed with mourning. Though the cause of the fire has not been ascertained, the Member of Parliament for St. Andrews Southwestern, Dr. Angela Brown-Burke, says arson is suspected.
One gentleman, Georgie, died in the flames. It seems as if the fire would have started where he was. By the time the other residents realized that the house was on fire, it was too late for him, and he would have gotten burnt up in the fire.
Brownberg says the incident is unfortunate as no one is able to locate relatives for the deceased who had just moved into the area. She says the recovery period will be difficult.
The other families, some of them were able to save a little bit, but the house itself, I'm not so sure how much longer they'll be able to use that. There is basically no roof on any of it, so all of the other 4 families are going to be exposed to the elements even while they're trying to put what they have saved together so that they can continue at least trying to eke out a living right there.
CVM Live reached out to the Jamaica Fire Brigade York Park Station, but was advised they are unable to confirm the details of the fire. Khadija Thomas, CVM Live.
Former National Security Minister, Senator K.D. Knight, has set a deadline for the government to announce a crime plan and has warned that if this is not done, there will be repercussions. CVM Live Joel Croskell has that story.
Though the Senate voted unanimously to approve the extension of the state of emergency in the St. Catherine North Police Division, the debate between the opposition and the ruling party raised some salient issues regarding the establishment of a crime plan.
People are in fear. People want to know what you're doing, if you can do something, if your government is up to the task. People just don't want some band-aid approach. Emergency powers in particular area that this time is a band-aid approach.
Leader of government business in the upper house, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, responded to Senator Knight's claims of a band-aid approach.
I think it's unfortunate for the state of emergencies to have been categorized as an effort to buy time and a band-aid approach. It is a part of the actions that are taken in extreme circumstances to return the levels of crime and disorder to a level of normalcy, of a level of manageability, to allow what is normal policing to be effective.
Efficacy, according to Senator Knight, would mean a comprehensive crime plan, something the JLP has been promising for the past 2 years.
So I am going to be awaiting eagerly a plan. If the plan is not put out, and President, I'm telling you this, we are in March, end of March. If I don't hear a crime plan in the month of April, I'm going to rouse up so far as I can the population to demand it.
Johnson-Smith responded with the suggestion that the promise of a national security defense plan was announced by Andrew Holness during his budget presentation.
Plan Secure Jamaica, which is a national security and defense plan. National security and defense plan. The plan includes crime. Why Jamaica has been failing to beat criminality in its entirety is because it has been only focused on crime.
Joel Crosskill, CVM Live.
Children in the St. Andrew East Rural Constituency were beneficiaries of a treat on Good Friday, hosted by the East Kingston Police Division. As CVM Live's Nicole Wilson reports, this was done in response to the decreasing crime in the area.
Crime in the East Kingston Police Division is trending down. That's the word from Commander for the Division, Superintendent Victor Hamilton. He is adamant about ridding the division of crime.
There is no room for violence producers. We'll be here with the citizens and we'll be putting on the pressure on producers of violence. We intend to alleviate the fears of the citizens. We intend to police in such a way that we minimize the fear of crime.
Speaking at a treat in the division, he also made an appeal to residents.
There is no good in harboring criminals in the area. There is no good in thinking that my son is a bad man, so I am safe. You're not safe. So we're appealing again to the persons of Bull Bay to give the police the information.
Also at the treat was Member of Parliament for the St. Andrew East Rural Constituency, Juliet Holness, who likewise spoke on the issue of crime in the area.
And you would find that the persons in the community kept complaining that at nights everything was like a ghost town. They wouldn't even see many of the police officers, or they wouldn't go into the tributaries. They would be on the main road. And I believe the efforts have paid some amount of dividends.
Nicole Wilson, CVM Live.
The impact of wellness tourism on the global industry has moved Jamaica's ministry to recently stage a sensitization workshop for spa operators. As CVM Live's Nicole Wilson reports, Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett wants Jamaica to be well positioned to take advantage of the opportunities in wellness tourism.
Global wellness tourism revenues grew by 14% from $494.1 billion in 2013 to $563.2 billion in 2015. This according to Minister of Tourism Edmund Bartlett while quoting statistics from the Global Wellness Institute. He added that wellness and spa tourism generated 11.7 million direct jobs, delivering $1.3 trillion of global economic impact. It is with this in mind that emphasis is being placed on wellness tourism in Jamaica.
And this is big business. And I believe that Jamaica can be well positioned to partake in this booming area of tourism. It is critical that we are ready to supply the demand of our ever-growing visitors who have various consumption patterns and interests, some of which include health and wellness.
Minister Bartlett says tourism is the fastest growing industry in the world, but adds that the sectors of health, wellness and medical tourism have also grown exponentially. According to Bartlett, developed and emerging tourist destinations are tapping into these areas as he cited the increased number of countries adopting tourism as a major industry.
In 2012, there were about 70 or so countries that had tourism as an important part of their economy. And today is 152 countries, with 79 of them having tourism dependence of 10% and more of their GDP, of course.
According to Bartlett, developed and emerging tourist destinations are tapping into these areas as he cited the increased number of countries adopting tourism as a major industry. Minister Bartlett wants Jamaica to capitalize on the emerging health and wellness market as it will help to increase employment as a part of the growth strategy. Nicole Wilson, CVM Live.
An insurance executive is emphasizing that insurance planning is a critical component of a finance plan that all persons should consider. CVM Live's Khadija Thomas has this report.
The Vice President of Scotia Insurance Sales and Service, Deborah Spence, says persons must not view an insurance plan as a burden, but an asset in preparing for the unexpected.
It is the choices that you make today that will determine your future. There's a saying, we make our choices, and then our choices make us. Because our choices inform our habits. And our habits inform what? What we're doing every single day that can change the course of our life.
Spence says a significant number of Jamaica's population is either uninsured or underinsured, as persons are more willing to cover their material possessions than their own lives.
The amount of life insurance that you need, of that protection that you need, is going to be hinged upon your stage of life. How many children or dependents you have. How many homes, properties, right? It is very situational, how old you are. There's no one size fits all, but as a rule of thumb, and like, Courtney suggested, it is 10 times your annual earnings you should have in life insurance coverage.
Spence says we must ask ourselves whether our families will be covered if we are not present to do so.
What have you put in place to actually ensure that your children are able to fulfill their potential by getting that foundational education that you want them to have? Is it a 1? Is it a 10?
Khadija Thomas, CVM Live.
It's now time for regional and international news with Nicole Wilson.
In Trinidad and Tobago, 19-year-old Runako Balgobin was gunned down in a community of La Romaine on Friday morning. Reports are that a relative of Balgobin heard gunshots around 4 a.m. on Friday but did not investigate. At daybreak, relatives and neighbors of Balgobin found him dead with bullet wounds. The United States Immigration Customs Enforcement ICE agency says officers from its enforcement and removal operations have arrested a number of Caribbean nationals among 271 immigrants as a part of an enforcement action targeting immigration violators and those who the agency says pose a threat to public safety. The enforcement action ran from March 18 to 22, in which officers made arrests across the state of Florida, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. 99 had criminal records that included felony convictions. On the international scene, Palestinian officials say that at least 16 people have been killed by Israeli forces and hundreds more wounded during protests at the Gaza-Israeli border. Thousands had marched to the border at the start of a 6-week protest, dubbed the Great March of Return. Here's more in this report.
A chaotic rush to the hospital, with hundreds of Palestinians injured in Gaza. A call for peaceful marches turned to violence as protesters headed towards the Israeli border. Israel's military says it used tear gas and opened fire to stop anyone illegally crossing into its territory or attacking soldiers. And this was just the start. Palestinians are planning a series of protests until mid-May. That will be 70 years on from the creation of the State of Israel. Palestinians see it as their catastrophe when hundreds of thousands of people fled their homes. And many here have never given up their claim to the land.
We are here to stress our right to return. Sooner or later, we must go back.
We want to tell the world that returning to our land is non-negotiable.
But Israel says Gaza's leaders are cynically exploiting ordinary people to stir up unrest.
Hamas and other Palestinian groups are calling their protest the March of Return. However, as events unfold, it's the March of Chaos. These are aggressive riots.
Gazan families are now being urged to stay at protest camps along the Israeli border.
Those were the top regional and international stories on Friday. I am Nicole Wilson. Good evening.
Well, that's it for major stories. More news later in the program in News Live in 5 with Joel Croskill. But up next is our young panel discussion, and they will give their take on the recent cabinet reshuffle. Howard Chamberlain of the JLP's Young Jamaica and Dextroy Martin of the PNPYO will both join us for the panel discussion.